Hey everyone, it's Mark Sievers and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to show you how to make at home the best, the most luxurious, but on a budget, fabulous white truffle mac and cheese. So I have to admit, I love mac and cheese. As a kid, I grew up eating the blue box, which I still have emergency boxes in my pantry because Ryan and I sometimes maybe after a little too much wine or maybe on a Sunday afternoon, we'll still make a box or two of that lovely blue box and still enjoy it because it reminds us of our childhood. But my white truffle mac and cheese is a little bit more elevated than that, and it's perfect for a weeknight dinner or a really earthy and elegant weekend dinner party. So I have a few things already done, and I have some great tips and tricks along the way. So, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Make sure you hit the little notification bell so you're notified of new videos as soon as they post. And stay tuned through the entire video because I really have some great tips and tricks for you to make your at-home experience of making my white truffle mac and cheese easy and breezy. So let's start out with mac and cheese. We love that creamy, that delicious body of a delicious cheesy macaroni, but sometimes I also like that really crisp topping. So let's get our topping put together first. So what I have in this little bowl is about 1.5 cups of panko breadcrumbs. And panko are Japanese, kind of like bread flakes. They're nice and crisp and they really kind of absorb this flavor, and when you bake them, they get nice and crispy. And I thought, I love using fresh herbs. So I thought maybe some fresh thyme in these breadcrumbs on this crisp topping would be delicious. So I have about 2 teaspoons of finely minced fresh thyme. I really don't use dried herbs. I love using fresh herbs. You can find them in any major grocery store now. If you have a garden, you can find them in your own garden, farm stands, and even in the winter, some of your local communities will even do indoor farm stands. So make sure you know what you have around for your resources and make sure you utilize them. But let me show you how to take some thyme off of the stem, because I think I've seen all these little gadgets and weird little contraptions, and I think, well, I have 2 fingers, and that's really all you need to take off the thyme leaves off the stem. So I just have a piece of thyme just like this, and I'm just gonna run my fingers backwards across the leaves until they fall off, just like that. I'll do another one, it happens really quick. Just take your piece of thyme and then run your fingers backwards and they come right off. So it seems tedious and sometimes it can be, but what I like to do is leave the thyme out for a couple hours so it just kind of dries a little bit, and that makes it easier to come off the stem. So I'm gonna put this 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme leaves right into my panko mixture. And then we can't have white truffle mac and cheese without white truffle. Well, white truffles are very expensive, but they have the most beautiful earthy flavor, and I found that white truffle oil instead of regular oil in the breadcrumb mixture will make this even more truffly. And I'm using my preferred Urbani truffles. Urbani is one of my favorite things to keep in the pantry, and they've been at this for generations and decades, and they really do just make the best well-rounded truffle products as well as fresh truffles. So I have about 5 tablespoons of Urbani white truffle oil in here, and I'm just gonna give this a stir. Instantly I can smell how amazing this is. That's gonna be really delicious and nice and crispy on the topping for my white truffle mac and cheese. So you also can't make mac and cheese without the mac part, macaroni. So let me show you what I've done ahead of time. I've taken 1 pound of cavatappi pasta. I love this pasta because I think it kind of has like a really elegant look to it, but also the sauce really absorbs to this. And I've made it in advance. This is probably now 1.5 hours, and while it was still warm, I tossed it with a tablespoon of the Urbani white truffle oil, and that prevents it from sticking and also adds more flavor. So we have, let's see, we have our topping, we have our pasta. And you know, I thought to give this white truffle macaroni and cheese some really good body and even more texture, I'm gonna put in some roasted cauliflower. And you'll see, I'll give you a little overhead here. You'll see this beautiful cauliflower is nice and golden. And see all these little bits, all these little brown bits that are on the sheet pan? I'm gonna add those as well because those are gonna give amazing flavor. And this is about 4 cups of small florets that I've roasted at 400 degrees for 15 minutes with a couple tablespoons of plain olive oil. You can get all these measurements at marcsievers.com, and I'll make sure to link it below as well. So sit back, relax. If you're sipping wine, cheers. Now, the next thing we need is some cheese. So my white truffle mac and cheese has 2 different cheeses. One that's gonna be cooked in the bechamel sauce, which I'll show you in a minute, and the other one is gonna get put right into the macaroni. So, a little switcheroo here, and I'll show you what I have. So I have about 1.5 cups of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. It's 24-month, it's aged good, really good Italian Parmesan. It's nice and spicy, and it tastes delicious. I'm gonna add this right into the bowl as well. But I wanna show you how I prepare Parmesan cheese and how I store it in the refrigerator. So when I get home from the grocery store, I have this nice wedge of Parmesan cheese, and I take off the rind. Save your rinds in your freezer. I wrap them in some plastic wrap. These are great to add into sauces, into soups, into stews, and they not only add flavor, but as you boil them with your soup or stew or sauce, some of that Parmesan comes off of that rind into your cooking, and it just adds another layer of flavor. So I'm gonna put that in my freezer for later, but take a sharp knife and just cut this into some small pieces. And I can't take credit for this particular part that I learned. I learned this years ago watching Ina Garten on television. And I thought, that's really smart. And it just makes having perfectly ground Parmigiano Reggiano cheese at my fingertips all the time. So I'm gonna put it into a little food processor here. I have a big food processor, but for grating cheese or for making little dips and things, I like this little handy dandy one. It's easy to clean, it all fits into the dishwasher. Put it on the lid and pulse it. Here we go. Very exciting. And what this is doing is it's grinding it, so you end up with this great texture. And, you know, what can I say? It just makes having Parmigiano Reggiano cheese always available. I store it into these great little deli containers, put on the lid, and et voila, perfectly ground Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. Thanks, Ina. So now, let's see, we have our crisp topping, we have our mac, which is the cavatappi pasta, we have our roasted cauliflower, I've got my Parmigiano Reggiano cheese already in here. So why don't we say, let's go to the kitchen and make a bechamel sauce. So I think when people think of macaroni and cheese, they think it's this big complicated thing and there's all these pots and pans and it's the sauce that really scares people. Making a bechamel sauce at home is really just like making a regular sauce. You're just adding some milk and cheese, and it's really simple. It's one of the first things I learned how to make back in my early 20s. So I won't tell you how many almost decades ago that was, but that's neither here nor there. So to make my bechamel and this lovely cheese sauce for white truffle mac and cheese, of course, we need truffles. Well, like I told you, white truffles, beautiful flavor, but they're astronomically expensive. So I've turned to my friends again at Urbani. I love this. It's white truffle butter. It's about 3 ounces. And it smells so fantastic. So this gives us the butter and the truffle flavor that we want. Truffles are very, very potent too. They have a lot of flavor packed in a little tiny, container. So believe it or not, between the truffle oil in the crumb topping and this 3-ounce container of truffle butter, that's going to be enough to flavor the entire dish of my white truffle mac and cheese. So let's get started on the roux, or the bechamel sauce rather. So what I have is a medium saucepan. I'm going to set this over medium heat, and I'm going to wait for that to get nice and warm. I'm going to put in my butter, my Urbani white truffle butter. Urbani products you can order online right from urbani.com. I'll link that up top as well because it really is a fabulous resource. They even have white truffle potato chips. Really delicious with a glass of champagne on a Friday night. Just saying. I'm gonna get a whisk. And I'm just letting this butter melt. I don't want the butter to really cook or start to sizzle. I want to be careful not to cook those truffles. So I'll show you else what I have while we wait for that to melt. I have some whole milk, which has just been sitting at room temperature. I have some really fabulous nutmeg. I happened to bring these home from Paris the last time I was there in 2019, putting the finishing touches on my cookbook, French Omelets, Your New House Meal. And I was shopping at La Grande Épicerie, and I just loved all of this packaging from Albert Menez. I'm sure I said that wrong, and fresh nutmeg is just so good. You can also just use plain ground nutmeg from your local grocery store. Some black pepper, some sea salt, and some flour. And then I have lots of cheese. So one of the things with macaroni and cheese is to get that really creamy, full flavor is using really good cheese. So this calls for, I'm using Fontina, and I need about 4 cups of Fontina cheese, but I'm using Fontina Valdosta, which is the Italian version. There are 2 types of Fontina cheese. I think one is Dutch and one is Italian. The Fontina Valdosta has really, really gorgeous, beautiful, well-rounded flavor, and that stands up nicely to the truffles, to the cauliflower, and of course to that fresh thyme in that crumb topping. So this is perfect. So let me give you a little overhead. So see, it's nice and melted, and I'm gonna dump in my flour. I'm just using a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, and I'm just gonna stir this around. So what this is doing, this is creating a little bit of a roux, which is going to help thicken the milk. And the reason I'm cooking this over a kind of a medium heat is I'm trying to cook out some of that raw flour taste. And I don't know anybody who likes the taste of raw flour. So this is going to make this nice and luxurious. What I love about this dish too is that, it really is about everyday luxury. It's not a terribly expensive dish to make. You can buy the Urbani truffle butter and Urbani truffle oil and keep it in. The butter can stay in the freezer for 6 months, and the oil really does last a long time. So it's a nice way to finish, drizzle it on pasta or even on popcorn or even just a little dipping for some bread. So this is a great recipe that just kind of elevates the really humble grocery store ingredients like a head of cauliflower and a box of dried pasta. And that's what I love about my white truffle mac and cheese. It's good enough for the weekdays and even better on the weekends. So this is good. This is cooked about 2 minutes. And now I'm going to slowly whisk in my milk as my pan is turning all over my stove, but that's okay. So I'm just going to slowly whisk in the milk. Now, and I'm whisking it nice and vigorously and making sure I'm getting the sides and the corners of this pan, because what I don't want are little lumps of flour in my beautiful cheese sauce. See, and then I get impatient, I dump it all in anyway. So, clankety clank. So I'm gonna whisk this just to make sure that there's no lumps. And as soon as I think there are no lumps, I'm going to switch to a wooden spoon and just stir it for 5 to 7 minutes until it thickens. And you'll see when it coats the back of the spoon. So let's see. That seems pretty good. Handy dandy wooden spoon. And now I'm just going to stir it constantly for 5, 6, 7 minutes, making sure to get the edges of the pan until it is nice and thick. See you soon. So it's been about 6 minutes, and let me show you what has happened to our delicious mixture. So you can see it's nice and thick, and it just coats the back of a wooden spoon, just like that. So off the heat, which I've turned off, I'm gonna add my 4 cups of Fontina Valdosta. That's gonna make it nice and creamy. And my seasonings. So I have a tablespoon of sea salt. Seems like a lot of salt, but this is really gonna flavor the entire pan of macaroni and cheese. So we wanna make sure it's nicely salted. But 1.5 teaspoons of freshly cracked black pepper. Put this right in. That is perfect. And some nutmeg, but 1/4 teaspoon. Nutmeg is very strong and goes a long way. Too much nutmeg can be very medicinal very quickly. So perfect. And it smells so good. Nutmeg is a classic ingredient in a bechamel sauce. So, and believe it or not, it really does add a little bit of kind of oomph to the pasta and the truffles. So, all right, come on back out into the island. Let's assemble this macaroni and cheese. So, I'm gonna take my cheese sauce. Oh, it smells so good. And look at how thick and creamy it is. I'm gonna add this to the mixture. Dump it in just like this. Oh, I can't wait for you to make this at home. It smells so delicious. You can really smell the truffles, smell the nutmeg. I love it. Big spatula, and give this a really good toss. The reason I didn't put the Parmesan cheese into the cheese mixture is Parmesan doesn't really melt very well. And I wanted to make sure that it didn't kind of get grainy. Nobody likes grainy mac and cheese. We want thick, luxurious mac and cheese. Look at this. Let me give you a little overhead of this. Look at that. It smells good enough to eat. So, it is good enough to eat. So of course you could stop here and eat it just like this, but we're gonna make it extra special. So what I have here is just the equivalent of a 10 by 13 dish, about 2 or so inches tall. You can use individual gratin dishes. Actually, let me show you. So here I have a nice little stack of gratin dishes. You could use these. These make individual portions. They're lovely for a dinner party. You can make them in advance. You can use your favorite grandmother's casserole dish that you remember from your childhood. You can use anything that's oven proof. So you can use a cast iron skillet, which is basically what this is. So, all right, let's see if I can, it's heavy. I'm gonna add this, look at this. Scrape all of that delicious cheese sauce. We don't wanna leave a single bit behind. Okay, spread it out. Just like this. And now we're gonna add let's take another taste. this little bit that's left in the bowl and the spatula, big hunk of crusty bread, little snack while this bakes. All right, so now I have my topping. So I'm gonna sprinkle this topping generously over the entire pan of mac and cheese, all across the top. Make sure it gets to the edges. You don't neglect the edges. The edges need to be nice and crisp. You can really smell the truffle. You can really smell the thyme. And it's pretty easy. It's not a hard recipe to make. You just have to use good ingredients and you'll end up with a delicious white truffle mac and cheese. So, all right. So now I'm gonna put this into my oven. It's preheated at 350 degrees. I'm gonna bake this anywhere between 30 and 35 minutes until the top is golden brown and the edges are nice and bubbly. Here we go. Oh, between all of the cheese, all of the pasta, and the cast iron skillet, this is pretty heavy. Oh, it's like working out, but not. I'm gonna set my alarm for 30 minutes and I'll see you back here. Time to clean up. Well, 30 minutes. And it smells amazing in here. So, oh, look at that. It smells so fantastic. I cannot wait for dinner. So what I like to do, let this cool for about 5 minutes. The inside is so hot. And I think tonight maybe I'll make my fresh herb salad, maybe make my French bistro vinaigrette. I'll link those recipes right here. And that's really all you need for a really beautiful, delicious, earthy, and elegant meal. Well, that and wine. Don't forget the wine. So let's see how this tastes. Little bowl, crunchy topping. Oh, very hot and cheesy. I'll just take a little bit and then I'll like piece it back together so that maybe Ryan won't notice that I had a bite without him. Actually, I did a pretty good job of hiding that. Props to me. Let's see. Oh, it's really hot. It's really hot. Delicious, truffly, creamy cauliflower cheeses, crisp, delicious thyme and white truffle topping. That's definitely a win-win. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Head over to marcsievers.com for the full written recipe for my white truffle mac and cheese. And while you're here, make sure you hit the little notification bell so you're notified of new videos as soon as they post. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye. This recipe and more can be found on my website, marcsievers.com. Thanks for watching.